Welcome Pisces to your in-depth monthly forecast for July 2025. As you come into this month, there's a truly energized dynamic link between the Sun and your traditional ruler Jupiter and the assertive energies of Mars. This is really lovely for your social life, and also if there is someone you're drawn to, can give you that extra little bit of self-confidence in the way you interact with them. But if you're a creative, this can also be excellent too. And Pisces people often are, because Mars can help you to punch across your passion and ideas with conviction as the month begins. There's also an electric connection between Venus and Uranus. A sudden encounter, a text message exchange, someone you see online could just somehow or another intrigue you. But again, it just adds an extra layer of excitement that you can feel as you come into the month. Now, unfortunately, practicalities and details are part of life, even if they can be as dull as the proverbial ditch water. But because Mercury is in a very practical part of your chart at the start of this month, but goes into an immediate pre-retrograde shadow, goes fully into retrograde on the 18th. If you are dealing with paperwork, anything to do with appointments, you need to be very precise, even if it is a bit of a push to find the spark to do it. Do know it is going to be important, particularly from the 22nd when the Sun joins up with Mercury. Mercury by then in a retrograde from the 18th, and the Sun moves into the part of your scope, very much to do with making sure your life structures run very, very well, very efficiently. But obviously with the Sun in the sign of Leo, it is a chance to feel more energized and more revitalized too. But back to the start of the month, because just as that electric connection between Venus and Uranus is occurring, your modern ruler of Neptune enters a retrograde which goes on through to the 10th of December. Now, Neptune is a gorgeous influence. It gives you that appreciation of subtleties, of atmospheres, of being expressive. It can be very, very ephemeral, but it's brilliant if you're interested in film, if you're interested in photography, music, artistry, you're a creator or a maker. All of these areas are boosted and enhanced by Neptune. But on the 30th of March, Neptune moved into a part of your chart where he's going to be through till November before inverting back into your sign. But he begins a retrograde, and it's important to understand that as much as Neptune has got that mystical vibe, it also can erode what's more physical. And because it's the second house, that, if you like, is a kind of Taurus energy, which can be the ground, can be life's foundations, can be our self-worth, our values, but critically also money. Now, that Neptune is going to be joined by Saturn on the 13th and also Chiron on the 30th, with a retrograde to them too. Now, they're all retrograde 5 months. So it's going to be important that you're working hard to understand what the values are that are important to you, because Saturn and Neptune together has got some benefits. But if we think about the host, Aries, it's about initiation, new beginnings, but it can be about raw energy. And for example, if you're eating things, particularly sugary things, it can be a bit of a second house thing to excess. That actually could have an effect on your vitality. But also, if you're grappling with financial realities and there are uncertainties in those areas, that is an area that you need to be very mindful of the details. So that's why the pre-retrograde shadow to Mercury, then Mercury retrograde, then the Sun moving into the 6th house, means that however much you start off this month with tremendous energy and excitement and enthusiasm, those details will be key. So think very much about preserving resources, because Neptune can erode. Saturn is of course about Earth, the second house for you, foundations, and the sign of Aries, energy. So energy around those areas needs care. It's also possible with your traditional ruler Jupiter having been in Gemini until the 9th of June for the last year, but afflicted by Saturn for the whole of that time pretty well, with Venus and Uranus moving into your 4th house and replacing where Jupiter was in the sign of Gemini, that you might get restless about where you live. Now, if you're very, very happy in your current abode, it's possible that you'll get a desire to change it around, maybe create more light, more space, rent a room out if you have a spare. It could be that you'll want more time to yourself. You may want more detachment around home and family matters. But Venus moving into the 4th house can definitely give you a boost if you're someone who does want to recreate your space in a fresh, imaginative way, in a decorative sense. Now, if you're in the northern hemisphere, you may also want to spend more time in nature, or perhaps modifying your garden. If you're in the southern hemisphere, I feel that those changes will play out more in your physical space. But Uranus is going to be in that area for the next 5 months, and the thing here is, although the Sun and Jupiter are in a very playful, romantic part of your chart, if you're in a romantic relationship where you don't get to see the other person that much, or you are someone who does need to maintain your independence, Uranus is going to make you more conscious of the politics around that. But initially, both Uranus and Venus link back to Saturn and Neptune. They also link back to Pluto, and Pluto's in that deep, very, very deep 12th house. And over the years to come, I feel that you are going to see some very powerful shifts in your psychology, much to do with past experiences, possibly things that were difficult, where you feel that people may have held power over you, or you can become much more conscious who's not really got your back. So your understanding of the psychology around where you're being self-expressive, playful, or social or romantic, the Sun and Jupiter in your 5th house, has to work well with those other energies working in a more psychological and emotional way in the back end of your chart. Because essentially, although the Sun and Jupiter are in the water sign of Cancer, as far as the overlay from your side, the 5th house is a bit more Leonian, which is ironic because, of course, that's where the Sun's heading later in the month. But then on the 10th, you could find yourself having a little bit of a need to think about how you manage your time, because the chances are you're going to be in demand. But because Uranus and Venus are in the 4th house, there's part of you that even if you socialise, you may want to do it from your home, or you may want to do it in familiar haunts, or conversely, you may want complete change and go to places that you haven't ventured to before because you're looking for extra emotional stimulation. But because the moon in Capricorn is its weakest position in its whole cycle, and it is for you about your connection to friends and your long-term plan, if you feel that your need to express your individuality in some way has been conflicted, I think Uranus being in Gemini is going to give you a greater desire for space. So, although you start this month in such fantastic form with the Sun and Jupiter together angling to Mars, it needs to be with the people who really, really feel right for you to be with. Because actually, other than that, I think you're going to want to use those energies to manifest your talent, but use your own space or control your own space in a little bit more of a careful way. On the 13th, Saturn joins Neptune in the retrograde, and frankly, if there are worries about money through to the end of August, they could show up, but equally it could make you much more conscious of being thrifty. And if you're someone who enjoys upcycling, recycling, maybe getting bargains on certain digital platforms that I'm not allowed to name, that could be when your savvy approach to your resources can actually see you stabilize things. So don't see Saturn and Neptune as a retrograde in the second house. It's an immediate red flag, but it's certainly, I would say, an orange flag that's making you more mindful of the value of things. And everyone puts different values on different things. Some people can think a cup of tea and a piece of homemade cake are amazing. Somebody else wants a diamond encrusted bracelet to even sort of feel remotely excited. I just don't know anyone like that. But you get my drift. So every Pisces person will define what's important to them with those retrogrades. But then Mercury goes fully retrograde on the 18th. If you have got any appointments, be prepared. They could be changed last minute. If you do need to write anything down, record anything, express something in a form, an application, you need to do it with real concentration and precision. The 22nd, though, as I mentioned, could give you a boost with your physical vitality. And it does through the new moon of the 24th, because if we think about it, the new moon in Leo is where the sun is at home. So as far as the sun's concerned, it's the strongest new moon of the year. The Cancer new moon as far as the moon. Now for you, this could give you an uplift in terms of vitality. Certainly encourages you to be more virtuous about what you eat, drink, how much sleep you're getting, how much exercise you're taking. But it does link back to Saturn, Neptune and Uranus. So that need for space that's coming from Uranus, the need to be mindful of foundations with Saturn and Neptune, but it is opposed by Pluto. And if there's something you're not quite seeing in your nature, your being, your way of being, the shadow side of your nature, it's possible that someone could bring something up around that time and challenge you a little bit. And it may be at work. So just be aware for politics at work. And someone who may not necessarily be someone who shows their hands very easily. So, you know, the type of person who's very good at stirring things up, but then is absolutely delightful to your face. Watch out for folks like that at that time. But on the 30th, as I mentioned before, Chiron goes retrograde. A great time to be thinking about making your diet as simple and cooking from scratch where possible. Certainly eliminating any processed stuff, I'd say. And then on the 31st, Venus gets seriously playful and moves into your sister water sign of Cancer. That's absolutely lovely. But we do have a Cazimia, a Mercury Cazimia, I should say, at the end of this month. And even if something has snagged you around a detail, you'll get a chance to use your imagination, which is often immense, allied to application and precision to correct whatever it might be. So to summarise, I think you're going to burst into this month on top form. There can be some excitement, but that shift of Uranus particularly is huge. It's for 5 months, and for those 5 months, it's giving you an insight into what you're going to have for 7 years from the end of April next year. So you may find your approach to emotion, to intimacy, to physical space, to where you live, to family members, going through a radical change. But also, you do have a chance to use that energy productively this month by managing your personal time more effectively and giving yourself a little bit more room and latitude if you want to focus on what really makes you happy, which is often being self-expressive in a hugely inspired way, rather than being caught up in people pleasing too much. And if you are spending time with people, I feel it's going to be the people who are really good for you as this month goes on. If you'd like to work with me directly and have a particular issue that would benefit from a one-to-one, please see my testimonials below. But also with year 2025 absolutely racing by, you can order your year 2026 personal forecast now, and I'll give you in my special offer the rest of this year free. You'll also get 30% off, but also your life roadmap report, possibly the most important document any of us can ever read, helping us to understand the patterns that are playing out in our lives so far, getting a more intimate understanding of how to work with those energies, and together with the forecast, then timing our moves as best as possible for good outcomes in our situation. Please see the link below for more.